You walked out this morning thinking everything was fine, and then you saw it. A leaf, completely shredded. Another one curling at the edges, pale and thin, like something drained it from the inside. You get closer, and there they are. Tiny, clustered, relentless. Aphids. Dozens of them. On the stem you just checked 2 days ago. So you go inside. You grab the spray bottle. You coat every leaf, every stem, every inch of that plant. You feel like you did something. And then it rains. And then they come back. And somewhere around the third or fourth time you're crouching in the heat with chemicals on your hands, staring at the same damage on the same plants, you start wondering if you're ever actually going to win this. Here's what nobody told you. You don't win by spraying harder. You win by planting smarter. There are flowers, specific flowers, that pests biologically cannot tolerate. Some of them release compounds that short-circuit how insects navigate. Some of them recruit predatory bugs that hunt your worst garden enemies without you doing a single thing. And some of them act as decoys, pulling pests completely away from your vegetables before they ever get there. But here's the part that matters. Planting the wrong flower or planting the right flower in the wrong spot can actually make your pest problem worse. Most gardeners never find this out until the damage is already done. Today we're counting down the 9 most powerful pest-repelling flowers you can grow, ranked from surprisingly effective all the way to the one plant that can transform how your entire garden defends itself. Naturally, permanently, without a single spray. Let's talk about why this keeps happening. Most vegetable gardens are monocultures. 1 row of tomatoes, 1 row of beans, 1 patch of kale. And to an insect, that's not a challenge. That's an invitation. 1 crop, no defenses, unlimited food. They find it, they colonize it, and they tell every other insect exactly where it is. Then we spray, and yes, the pests die, but so do the beneficial insects. The ones that were already hunting your aphids. The ones pollinating your squash blossoms. Gone. And now the pest population rebounds faster than the predator population can recover. So next season is worse. And the season after that is worse again. Nature already designed a way out of this. Certain flowers emit volatile compounds. Chemical signals that either repel pests directly, confuse their ability to locate your plants, or attract the insects that prey on them. Some work above ground. Some work underground, in the root zone, where you'll never even see the damage they're preventing. 3 mechanisms. Repel, recruit, redirect. Repel the pests you don't want. Recruit the predators that hunt them. And redirect the most persistent insects toward decoy plants, away from everything you're actually trying to grow. The result is a garden that isn't under constant siege. More bees, more butterflies, healthier soil, cleaner vegetables, and honestly, less time on your knees with a spray bottle, more time actually enjoying what you built. Let's get into the countdown. Number 9, Sweet Alyssum. Start here if you have aphid problems and you're exhausted. Because this tiny flower does something quietly extraordinary, and it does it without you lifting a finger. Sweet Alyssum grows low to the ground, almost like a living cloud along your garden edges. White or soft purple blooms, so dense they blur together. The scent is warm and honey-like on a still morning. It looks fragile, decorative, like something you'd plant just to fill space. But here's what's actually happening underneath all that softness. The nectar inside these flowers has a specific chemical composition. A sugar-to-amino acid ratio that is unusually attractive to one insect in particular, the hoverfly. And the hoverfly, once it finds your garden, lays eggs directly into aphid colonies. Its larvae hatch hungry. One hoverfly larva can consume hundreds of aphids before it ever reaches maturity. Sweet Alyssum doesn't repel pests. It recruits the predators that eliminate them. That's a fundamentally different strategy, and it's more effective. It also draws parasitic wasps. Small, non-stinging wasps that target caterpillars and whitefly larvae in ways no spray ever reaches. Grow it in zones 5 through 11 as an annual. Full sun to part shade. Sow it directly along garden borders or between vegetable rows. It self-seeds freely. Plant it once, and it tends to come back on its own. 1 week after Alyssum establishes and the hoverflies arrive, aphid pressure on nearby plants begins dropping. Not because you did anything. Because the garden started doing it for you. That was your ground-level defense. Now let's go vertical, with a flower that certain insects find chemically unbearable. Number 8, Tansy. If you've ever noticed ants running up and down your plant stems, and wondered why the aphid problem never fully goes away no matter how many times you spray, here's something you need to understand. Ants farm aphids. They protect them from predators, move them to fresh growth, and feed on the honeydew they produce. You're not just fighting aphids. You're fighting a managed operation. Tansy interrupts the whole thing. It grows tall, sometimes reaching 4 or 5 feet, with ferny, almost wild-looking foliage and clusters of small, bright yellow button flowers that glow against a vegetable bed in midsummer. The scent is sharp and medicinal. Most people either love it or find it overwhelming. Insects don't deliberate. They leave. The compounds responsible are camphor and thujone, both present in tansy's leaves in concentrations that make it chemically hostile to ants, aphids, cucumber beetles, squash bugs, and Colorado potato beetles. Historically, before synthetic pesticides existed, tansy was planted around doorways, root cellars, and vegetable gardens specifically for this purpose. Medieval monastery gardens used it as a natural preservative and insect barrier for centuries. Grow it in zones 3 through 9. Full sun, drought-tolerant, extremely low maintenance. One important note, tansy spreads aggressively. Contain it in a pot or a defined border, and it stays manageable. Plant it near your squash or potato beds where pest pressure tends to peak in late summer. And when you cut it back, don't throw it away. Tansy accumulates potassium in its leaves. Add it to your compost pile, and it activates decomposition while returning minerals to your soil. It's working even after the season ends. One plant near a squash bed. That's all it takes to begin shifting the balance. Tansy repels. The next flower on this list does something more aggressive. It hunts. Number 7. Bronze fennel. Most gardeners avoid fennel entirely. They've read that it's allelopathic, that it releases compounds harmful to nearby plants, and they decide it's too risky to bother with. That caution is understandable. It's also costing them one of the most powerful pest control plants available. Because planted in the right spot, bronze fennel doesn't just survive in your garden. It transforms a section of it into a predator habitat. The visual alone is worth growing it for. Deep burgundy bronze foliage, feathery and fine, catching the light like it's in slow motion. Tall yellow umbel flowers, flat-topped, open, accessible, swaying above everything else in the bed. Swallowtail butterflies find it immediately. On a warm afternoon, a mature fennel plant is in constant motion. Something is always landing, hovering, investigating. Those umbrella-shaped flowers are the key. Their open structure makes them ideal landing platforms for parasitic wasps, lacewings, and ladybugs, insects that don't just visit your garden but actively hunt in it. Lacewing larvae are called aphid lions for a reason. They are aggressive, relentless feeders, and fennel is one of the plants that consistently brings them in. Keep it 3 to 4 feet from tomatoes and peppers, which are sensitive to its root chemistry. Near brassicas and cole crops, it's an asset. Zones 4 through 9, full sun, low water once established. In mild climates, it comes back as a perennial. Here's what most gardeners never find out. The swallowtail caterpillars that feed on fennel foliage. The ones that look like they're doing damage. Those caterpillars become butterflies that pollinate your entire garden. Experienced gardeners leave them completely alone. The short-term leaf loss is irrelevant compared to what returns later. A mature fennel plant at peak summer is an ecosystem in miniature. Constant predation, constant pollination, constant ecological activity that benefits everything growing nearby. Beautiful, strategic, and genuinely wild. Now we go to a flower that works in a completely different way, one that tricks pests into leaving your vegetables completely alone. Number 6. Nasturtium. Aphids love nasturtiums. And that is exactly the point. The blooms are impossible to ignore, blazing orange, deep red, warm yellow, cascading out of beds and over edges in every direction. The leaves are round and lily-pad smooth, catching morning dew in perfect spheres. The flowers are edible, with a sharp peppery bite that surprises people every time. Everything about nasturtium looks abundant, generous, almost careless in the best possible way. But underneath that casual beauty, something deliberate is happening. Nasturtium is a trap crop. Aphids, whiteflies, and black flies are drawn to it with an intensity that seems almost irrational. They choose it over tomatoes, over beans, over kale, over nearly everything else in the bed. While pests cluster on the nasturtium, predatory insects follow. The aphid pressure on your vegetables doesn't just slow down. It relocates entirely. And it goes further than that. When nasturtiums come under heavy aphid attack, they release airborne chemical signals, volatile organic compounds, that function as a distress call, a biological SOS that actively recruits aphid predators to the area. The plant is not passively suffering. It is calling for backup. And the backup comes. The roots also emit isothiocyanate compounds that confuse soil-dwelling pests below the surface, a layer of protection most gardeners never even think about. Grow it as an annual in most zones, perennial in 9 through 11. Full sun to part shade. Here's a detail that surprises most people. Poor soil actually produces better nasturtiums. Too much nitrogen pushes leafy growth at the expense of flowers. Direct sow after your last frost date and leave them alone. Plant them at the perimeter of your vegetable bed. Let them sprawl. Let the aphids find them. And while that happens, harvest the flowers for your salads. Because while the nasturtium is doing its protective work, it is also giving you one of the most beautiful and underused edible garnishes in the garden. Quick question before we keep going. Drop a comment right now and tell me, what pest is doing the most damage in your garden this season? Aphids, squash bugs, cabbage worms, tomato hornworm? I read every single comment, and the pest problem that comes up most often becomes the next dedicated video. Tell me what you're dealing with. Number 5, lavender. Walk through a lavender field and pay attention to something most people miss. The leaves around it are clean. No holes. No curling edges. No aphid clusters on the stems. Deer that wander through gardens at night walk past it completely. Rabbits ignore it. Even mosquitoes keep their distance. Something about this plant tells the insect world, don't bother. The foliage is silver green and architectural, rising into dense violet wands that move slowly in warm afternoon wind. Bees spiral through the flower spikes in long, lazy orbits. Bees are one of the few insects that genuinely love lavender, which tells you exactly how selective its chemistry is. It welcomes pollinators and repels everything else. On a warm evening, the scent drifts across the entire garden. There is nothing passive about lavender. It fills a space completely. The active compounds are linalool and linalool acetate, volatile oils that are deeply repellent to moths, whiteflies, fleas, aphids, and mosquitoes. Plant it near brassicas and cabbage moths become confused, lose their navigation, and move on. Plant it near roses and aphid pressure drops without a single intervention. Run it along a garden pathway, and the flying insect load across the whole area decreases noticeably by midsummer. Here's the part most gardeners never consider. Lavender's repellency isn't constant. It intensifies with heat. As summer temperatures climb and volatile oils release more aggressively into the air, the protective radius around the plant actually expands. So the hottest weeks of the season, when pest pressure is at its absolute worst, are precisely when lavender is working hardest. It scales with the problem. English lavender thrives in zones 5 through 8. French and Spanish varieties carry through zones 8 to 11. Full sun, sharp drainage. Lavender will rot in wet, heavy soil, so raise the bed slightly if needed. Once established, it asks for almost nothing and lives for years. A border of lavender flanking a vegetable garden looks like something from a Provençal farmhouse and functions like a chemical perimeter. Both things are true simultaneously. We are now in the top 4. And from here, every flower left on this list has a mechanism that will genuinely change how you think about what a garden can do. Starting with one built specifically for tomato growers. Number 4, borage. If you've grown tomatoes for more than one season, you already know the particular dread of finding a hornworm. You don't see the insect first. You see the damage. Entire branches stripped, a thick green stem suddenly bare, frass scattered across the leaves below. By the time you spot the caterpillar itself, it's already enormous and the damage is done. Borage is the flower that changes that equation before it begins. The blooms are a shade of blue that stops people mid-step. Not pale, not muted, electric, saturated, star-shaped, nodding slightly on curved stems like something that belongs in an illustration rather than a real garden. Bees treat borage as a priority destination. A plant in full bloom hums audibly. The flowers are edible, tasting faintly of cucumber, beautiful floating in a glass or scattered across a plate. But plant it between your tomatoes and something shifts. The hornworm pressure drops. The scent compounds borage releases into the air are thought to interfere directly with the moth's ability to locate host plants for egg-laying, disrupting the problem before the caterpillar ever exists. It also acts as a secondary trap crop for aphids and draws predatory wasps that hunt caterpillars throughout the bed. One detail that consistently surprises people: borage is a dynamic accumulator. Its roots pull silica and trace minerals from deep in the soil. Chop the plant back at the end of the season, work it into the bed, and those minerals release back into the root zone. It improves the soil it grows in while simultaneously protecting the plants beside it. That combination is rare. Direct sow after last frost in any zone, full sun to part shade. It dislikes transplanting, grows fast, and self-seeds so reliably that one plant quietly becomes a permanent garden resident. The gardeners learning this now are the ones who stop fighting hornworms reactively and start preventing them entirely. If that's the kind of garden you want to build, subscribe right now. Because what's coming in the top 3 includes a flower whose root chemistry has been studied as a biological replacement for synthetic soil treatments. You don't want to miss it. Number 3. Calendula. Ask experienced organic gardeners, people who have been doing this for 20 or 30 years, which single companion flower they would never remove from a vegetable garden. Most of them give the same answer: calendula. The blooms are dense and luminous, deep orange, warm gold, soft cream, opening fully in morning light and holding color through the first hard frosts of autumn. Most flowers quit in cold weather. Calendula keeps going. Bees cover it in spring before much else is blooming. Hoverflies return to it all season. It glows at the edge of a vegetable bed like something deliberately placed for effect, which in the best gardens, it is. Above ground, the scent and volatile compounds repel aphids, whiteflies, and tomato hornworm while drawing in hoverflies and parasitic wasps continuously. That alone would justify growing it. But the real reason experienced gardeners treat calendula as non-negotiable has nothing to do with what happens above the soil. The roots secrete alpha-terthionyl, a compound with demonstrated toxic effects on root knot nematodes, microscopic soil pests that attack the root systems of tomatoes, peppers, carrots, and most other vegetables from completely underground. You never see nematode damage coming. Plants just weaken, yellow, stall, and fail for no visible reason. And because the damage is invisible, most gardeners never connect the cause to the symptom. Calendula connects it for you. Planted consistently in a bed over 2 or 3 seasons, nematode populations measurably decline. The soil itself recovers. It is one of the only flowers that protects the plant above ground and rehabilitates the ground beneath it at the same time. Annual in all zones, frost-tolerant, direct sow, deadhead for continuous bloom through the entire growing season. It is one of the easiest plants in this entire countdown to grow successfully. 3 flowers left. 2 of them are going to surprise you. And the one at the top of this list, the one we've been building toward, is the flower that ties everything together. Number 2, pyrethrum daisy. Every bottle of organic insecticide you've ever picked up at a garden center, the ones labeled safe for edibles, approved for organic growing, recommended by every natural gardening resource, almost all of them trace back to this flower. Not a chemical laboratory, a flower. Pyrethrum daisy looks almost deliberately understated for something this powerful. White petals, clean and simple, arranged around a warm golden center. Silver gray foliage, low and neat. It has the quiet elegance of a classic daisy and absolutely none of the gentleness. The compound it produces, pyrethrin, attacks the sodium ion channels in an insect's nervous system, causing paralysis and death. It is effective against aphids, spider mites, leafhoppers, thrips, whiteflies, and a broad range of flying insects. Commercial organic pesticide manufacturers dry and concentrate the flowers to extract it at scale. But here is what the bottle never tells you. The living plant releases pyrethrin continuously at a much lower, more diffuse level. Enough to repel and disorient insects navigating toward your garden, but far below the concentration that harms beneficial insects in meaningful numbers. You are not spraying a dose. You are creating a persistent atmospheric signal that insects read as danger and route around. That is a fundamentally smarter intervention than any spray, applied once and forgotten. Grow it in zones 3 through 7. It prefers cool seasons, performing strongest in spring and fall, which aligns precisely with the pest pressure windows that catch most gardeners off guard before summer protection is even in place. Full sun, sharp drainage, perennial in cooler climates. Planted at garden perimeters and near your most pest-vulnerable crops. The irony is that most gardeners have bought the product derived from this plant without ever thinking to grow the plant itself. One pyrethrum daisy at the edge of your bed is doing quietly, continuously, what the bottle only does when you remember to apply it. And yet, as remarkable as pyrethrum is, it still doesn't touch the flowers sitting at number 1. Because that flower doesn't just repel pests above ground or disorient them in the air. It changes the soil they live in. It dismantles the pest system from the root level up. And once you understand how it works, you'll wonder why it isn't in every vegetable garden on earth. Number 1, French marigold. For a moment, forget everything you think you know about marigolds. Forget the grocery store pots by the entrance. Forget the scattered orange accents that never seem to do much. Forget whatever you planted once that didn't appear to make a difference. Because the reason most gardeners don't see results from marigolds comes down to one specific detail. And once you know it, everything changes. The variety is everything. French marigold, Tagetes patula, not the tall African varieties, not mixed hybrid packs. This specific plant, planted densely and deliberately throughout the vegetable bed, not scattered at the edges as decoration, but woven through it like armor, is the most researched, most documented, most ecologically complete pest control flower in home gardening. The blooms are jewel-toned and relentless. Deep burnt orange, dark burgundy, molten gold, dense and structured, holding color from early summer through hard frost. On a warm afternoon, the scent is resinous and warm and carries across the entire garden. Butterflies move through in slow arcs. Ladybugs work the stems. Hoverflies circle the open centers continuously. The visual alone, a vegetable bed laced with French marigold in full summer bloom, looks like something designed. Because ecologically it is. Above the soil, the volatile compounds released from foliage and flowers have been shown in peer-reviewed research to significantly reduce colonization by whiteflies, aphids, and Mexican bean beetles on nearby tomatoes, peppers, and squash. The scent doesn't just repel, it disrupts the olfactory navigation insects used to locate host plants in the first place. They can't find your vegetables because the marigolds are chemically obscuring them. Below the soil, the roots secrete alpha-terthionyl and thiophene derivatives, compounds with demonstrated nematocidal activity studied across more than 4 decades of agricultural research. Root-knot nematodes, which silently devastate vegetable crops in ways that look like inexplicable failure, are suppressed by these root secretions at a biological level no spray ever reaches. You cannot treat nematodes from above ground. French marigold treats them from inside the soil itself. And the effect compounds over time. One season of dense French marigold planting reduces nematode pressure measurably. 2 seasons begins to rehabilitate the soil structure. 3 seasons, and the bed that once produced struggling, yellowing, mysteriously failing plants starts producing the way you always wanted it to. You are not just protecting this year's garden. You are building next year's garden and the one after that simultaneously. Plant them throughout the bed. Between tomatoes, beside peppers, in front of squash. Not 1 or 2. Enough that the bed feels genuinely interwoven. Full sun, any zone as an annual, direct sow or transplant after last frost. Extraordinarily low maintenance. They bloom without deadheading. They ask for almost nothing. And they return more than almost anything else you can put in the ground. Most gardeners have grown marigolds and moved on, unconvinced. The ones who grow the right variety, in the right density, in the right locations, they stop fighting their gardens. They start enjoying them. Picture your garden in 8 weeks. You walk out early, before the heat settles in. The tomato leaves are clean and whole. Peppers are heavy and glossy. Kale stands undamaged in the morning light. There are bees moving through the borage, butterflies drifting across the calendula, hoverflies hovering low over the alyssum border. The marigolds are burning orange along every row. The whole thing is alive in a way that feels different, not manicured, not controlled, but genuinely balanced. You haven't sprayed anything. You haven't fought anything. You just planted smarter. That is what companion planting actually delivers when it's done with intention. Not a perfect system, not instant results, but a garden that builds its own resilience season by season because the right plants are working together underneath everything you can see. Here's your starting point. You don't need all 9 today. Start with French marigolds woven through your vegetable bed. Add a nasturtium at the perimeter. Sow sweet alyssum along the edges. Those 3 alone will shift what your garden feels like by midsummer. Then add the others as your space and season allow, and watch the layers of protection build on each other year after year. 9 flowers. 9 different mechanisms. 1 garden that starts defending itself. Sweet alyssum recruits the hunters. Tansy breaks the ant-aphid operation. Bronze fennel builds the predator hub. Nasturtium draws pests away and calls for backup. Lavender builds the scent perimeter. Borage guards the tomatoes. Calendula heals the soil from above and below. Pyrethrum creates the chemical boundary. And French marigold ties the entire system together from the root zone up. That is not a collection of pretty flowers. That is a defense strategy. If you're building a garden that works with nature instead of constantly fighting it, subscribe right now. Every week, I break down the strategies that experienced organic gardeners use to grow more, spray less, and actually enjoy the process. Next week, I'm covering the companion planting combinations that produce the highest vegetable yields with the lowest pest pressure, the pairings most gardeners never figure out on their own. And if you know someone still reaching for the spray bottle every week, share this video with them. What they learn in the next 10 minutes might change how they garden for the rest of the season. I'll see you in the next one.